James is going to review the roads to modernity while he eats his New Year's Eve dinner, and I'm going to review these videos. And the top of the stack today, which best to worst from top to bottom, is the Umbrella Academy Season 1, and it wasn't that great. But the other things were just that much worse. So I'll talk about them briefly, and then James will talk about his stuff for the rest of the time. So, let's see. The Umbrella Academy, Season 1. If you are on a diet for the beginning of New Year's, a lot of people have this New Year's resolution and it lasts a few days, and you don't want to watch this because a lot of this show is in a donut shop, and I had a craving for donuts. I don't even like donuts.
And it was a particular type of donuts?
Yeah, because he kept eating filled donuts.
Mm.
And so anyway, the one character who was in the donut shop a lot talking about filled donuts and whatever. And well, anyway, I don't like those. But so this is a kind of superhero thing, and it's there's a lot of, oh, well, we have to do this, or, you know, this is the only way kind of thing. And it's like you're sitting there going, well, there's a million other solutions to this problem. But anyway, this got put on the stack on the top because it was interesting enough. It just, any other day, honestly, this might have been on the bottom of the stack, though.
Lousy competition.
Yeah. Lying and stealing. Now, the actors in this were all right.
Although one looks a little anorexic or bulimic or both.
Yeah. But it's just a typical kind of art stealing movie, whatever.
Oh,
it's not,
no.
You know, it's really not even worth them making these things. Murder, She Wrote. Now, you think, oh, well, she already reviewed Murder, She Wrote. Well, this is Volume 3 of the set. It went on for quite a while. This is Season 8 to Season 10. So I guess it lasts 10 seasons. And honestly, I had put Murder, She Wrote up a lot higher in the stack when I was reviewing the early stuff, because it was better. The mysteries are still good in this, but Season 4, they decided to give Angela Lansbury's character, Jessica Fletcher, a bit of a facelift. Not literally Angela Lansbury. I don't think she got a facelift, or if she did, she still looked great. But I'm not talking about that. They gave her a fancy new apartment in New York City, a fancy new job at a university, and a fancy new wardrobe. So she doesn't look, I don't know, tweed or whatever. She doesn't look like some small town Maine kind of woman anymore. She looks successful, right? And they also gave, and that would be fine if that was it, but they gave Murder, She Wrote, the whole show, a bit of a facelift. They put in new music, so they had some hip new music with saxophones and harmonicas and synthesizers playing too often in the show, like a lot of 80s kind of shows, and they made it more adventure, you know, so they had some a little more adventure than
was she doing kung fu
one would
and
want it.
karate?
No, she wasn't. Thank goodness they didn't have her doing karate or anything like that. But it just got to be a bit much, right? So honestly, I'm with the things that they were doing to try to tweak Murder, She Wrote. They should have kept in mind, okay, who's the audience? Besides Pauline, 10-year-old Pauline or whatever, who was watching the show, or even younger, it was a bunch of blue hairs. They don't want to hear the saxophone music and some of the language that they were using in this. I'm not saying that it was, you know, they weren't swearing and stuff like that. Some of the things, like one character said something like, some people like to be ridden rough. or something like that. And it's like, whoa, not in Murder, She Wrote. and so they're showing blood and stuff like that. And it's just like, okay, no, doesn't work anymore. You murdered, She Wrote with your trying to bring it into fashion or whatever. It was ridiculous. But still, the mysteries are good. So, worth watching. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. So this is a bunch of people that nobody would want to relate to. They're
College age girls.
Superficial, really dumb. They're playing this game called Bodies, 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 which you sneak around the house in the dark, and then somebody touches you on the back, like tag, and you're dead, right? And then so you play the body, and then people have to figure out you scream bodies, 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 and everyone has to figure out who did it. Well, there's no mystery to it or anything. Like, you just go, okay, well, who came into the room last or whatever. I don't know. Honestly, like, there's nothing. This is really dumb kids version of hide and go seek tag and / mystery that with the no mystery, right? But it turns out that these loser kids find themselves in a real mystery, and it's a kind of amusing one. So I don't know, it's hard to care. You know, you're watching these people and you're going, oh, can't they all die instead of just, a few or whatever. Anyway, Section 8, this one had Mickey Rourke and a bunch of people, and it's unwatchable. Absolutely unwatchable. It's so bad. It had the I don't remember what his name was, but the brother off of what's that vampire movie from True Blood? I don't know. Maybe his name was Jason Stockhouse or something. I can't remember what his name was. Anyway, had him in it. It's so bad. It's not even really the fault of the acting, because he was okay in that. And I mean, Mickey Rourke is not a bad actor.
Just don't want to look at his smoke-ravaged face.
But honestly, it's everything was bad about this movie. The story, the dialogue was incredible. The things that they'd say, it's like, yeah, nobody would say that. It's ridiculous. Like, did they even write a script? Who wrote the script? Somebody that flunked out of grade 6 3 times and then decided, that's it, I'm going to become a movie script writer. Like, it's so bad. Okay, so that's all I have to say. Now you can talk about this book.
Okay.
So I'll move these out of the way.
God.
Yep, he's looking really terrible.
Yeah, if you're a smoker.
Yeah, they should really, on packages of cigarettes, rather than putting the pictures of people's lungs or bad teeth or whatever, they should just put a picture of Mickey Rourke.
Yep.
Yeah.
Want to look like that?
Yeah.
And it happens so quickly with it.
Yeah. How are you doing in here, little baby?
There's Angel.
Yeah. Angel's hiding in there. Keep him warm. She kept getting underfoot. She wanted to cuddle in bed because that's her favorite thing to do, is lay around watching Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
Well, not Murder, She Wrote. She prefers musicals, actually, stuff like that. You know, she really likes music.
Yeah, she's blind in one eye, and the other eye isn't that good. She's getting cataract.
Yeah.
She's well up there. So that's about the one thing that she does competently anymore.
Oh, she loves
does
watching
a good job.
TV. Yeah.
Yeah, she likes watching it in the mirror. Actually.
Yeah, and she'll like watching in the mirror too. Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so The Roads, plural, Roads to Modernity by Gertrude Himmelfarb. So, Himmelfarb means the color of heaven. Isn't that an awesome name? So, here's a little picture of Gertrude. Looking very, Washington-like or something like that. So Gertrude Himmelfarb is taught at the Graduate School of the City University of New York. You know, it's not exactly New York University, much less Columbia where she was named Distinguished Professor of History in 1970. And I don't know what that is. Was she a good instructor or something like that? And she's now a Professor Emeritus, so she's retired. In 1991, she was named the Jefferson Lecturer in the Humanities, the highest honor bestowed by the U.S. government for distinguished achievement in the humanities. Oh, okay. So this was the U.S. government, federal government, 1991. Who was in power? Oh, George Bush Sr. So that's a political kind of thing, right? So she's a conservative. She lives with her husband, Irving Kristol. So he's a famous, in some people's books, an infamous right-winger. She lives in Washington, D.C. So she's done other things like Gertrude Himmelfarb's One Nation, Two Cultures, The Demoralization of Society. So it's demoralization is moralization of society. Another book she's written is On Looking into the Abyss. And Poverty and Compassion, that's a third book, are available in paperback. So this is actually a jacket painting, is a philosopher giving a lecture on the orrery, 1766, by Joseph Wright of Derby. I'm not sure exactly how they say it. It's a Derby hat, I think. Anyway, it's a very nice painting. Dates from a long, long time ago. 250 years ago. The kind of thing that's out of style nowadays, and I'm going, yeah. Anyway, she's a fascinating. She's got a fascinating thesis. She includes amongst her people in the Enlightenment Edmund Burke. Now, I can remember when I was a kid, about 1970, and I was a kid. And the dates do go back to 1970, you know. It's the Bishop Usher had the world beginning something like 4,000 and change BC. He was a religious figure, obviously, with a title like that, bishop. And I think, did he come from Ireland? I'm not sure. Not worth worrying. But dates do go back earlier than 1970, 80. Just for you folks out there that are so young, it's like what you should do is just get your smartphone just hooked into your left hand. Just get it sewn into your left hand, unless you're left-handed, into your right hand or whatever. Anyway. So she has Edmund Burke as a member of the Enlightenment, and he has a whole chapter to himself. So, is he the only one to have a chapter devoted to him? Yeah, exactly right. So you've got the British Enlightenment, the Sociology of Virtue, and that goes for about 150 pages. Well, we'll say 125. It gets up to page 146 or something. This is not a long book. What is it all told? You should have put in front how long a book is. I didn't write this one, but I'll just look into that. It's less than 300 pages. So more than half the book, or roughly half the book, is just on the, what she calls the English Enlightenment, the British Enlightenment. Then she has the French Enlightenment, and that lasts only 40 pages. This is fascinating. And the American Enlightenment lasts roughly 40 pages too. And most people don't really talk about the American Enlightenment. Most people don't really talk that much about the English Enlightenment or British Enlightenment. It should be British because the Scottish folks, like Adam Smith, the major prophet of capitalism, was Scottish. And there were other folks, part of the Enlightenment, maybe a little bit early, David Hume and stuff like that. No, he wasn't actually that early. David Hume, he was Scottish. An important figure in British Enlightenment. I do like the fact that she gives so short shrift to the French Enlightenment. The French Enlightenment led to the Terror. And it's funny because a guy called Jean-Jacques Rousseau is included in the French Enlightenment. He was anti-Enlightenment. And he's been the inspiration. I'll be reviewing the social contract in very short order. It's one of my New Year's resolutions. I was hoping to get it done before New Year's. I like doing New Year's resolutions like that. Like resolving to get stuff done by the next New Year. So that way I kind of give myself a deadline, and maybe I'm less likely to. I might like put it off more than most people would, but the stuff gets done.
Oh.
You know,
Well, for me, I just made a big list of things that I'd like to do this coming year, and it's like, yeah, that's 10 years worth of stuff. So there's no way I'll get it
you
done.
get stuff done, so you don't have to work. The individual things get put off a little, but you get a lot of stuff done. So I'll be doing the social contract. It's a small volume, but it's full of content, and most of it's awful. So some people have pointed out, and maybe with more than a little justification, Rousseau is amazing because he's an inspiration for Marx and Marxists, but also for folks like Hitler. And I'm going, yeah, there's more than a little justification to that. So, it's funny to read his contract on the social, or his book on the social contract. It's kind of like his political theory. And, you'll be getting the confessions thrown at you too. That's another one that I've resolved. Well, it's a little less, more of a priority for me than the social contract. And it's a little lengthier, all that sort of stuff. But I'm going, yeah, for example, in right near the end of the book, he says, so he's supposed to be considered archetypal Democrat amongst the folks of the Enlightenment, because the French Enlightenment, a lot of them believed, a lot of the members of the French Enlightenment believed in enlightened monarchy. So Voltaire, for example, hung around, Arouet, I think was his real last name, he hung around with Frederick the Great in Austria. One of those folks hung around with Catherine the Great, was a Voltaire for a while. Anyway, it's not that enlightened monarchy, enlightened despotism. What's that about? Anyway, towards the end of his little screed on the social contract, Rousseau talks about, it might be necessary to have a little dictatorship. But it's important to call it quits early. Well, that sounds like the withering away of the state. It's mystification, withering away of the state in Marxism. Like if a person sets themselves up as a dictator, what's to motivate them to give up being a dictator? They kind of like it. So that's what happened with the French Revolution. Rousseau was the big inspiration, at least the second half of the French Revolution. And that's when the terrorists started taking over. Once they got rid of the king, there no longer was no sign of legitimacy. There's no legitimate ruler, even though kings rule illegitimately. So it was just every man or monster to himself. I can be the replacement for the king. I'll be a dictator. So another thing that he espouses was this idea of having security. This is kind of like something to protect society. Oh, I think he also talks about more, but definitely. And you know what they had was the main guys that were doing the terror, and eventually on each other more than on other people, or as much, was the Committee of Public Safety. Can you imagine that? They're going around tossing people to the guillotine, but they call it the Committee of Public Safety. They had to do that. It's all in Rousseau. And you know, I used to think that Rousseau, I mean, he is an inspiration to people who really don't know him that well, but who think that they go from, all they know is the little formulation. It's right at the beginning of the social contract. Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. But you know, his ideal society was not like primitive society. I think he calls it like, he'd probably call it société sauvage, savage society. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit different in French, sauvage. Well, we got our word in English, savage, I'm pretty sure, from the French sauvage. And it would come from something like, we got this word in English, selvage, which just means forest, or forested areas and stuff like that. So the sauvage, French, so often at the end of a syllable, they'll have a vowel, and then they had originally an L, and they would change the L to a U. So that's where sauvage, I'm pretty sure, comes from. Just means people who live in the forest, right? Savage. Now it doesn't mean that, but that's what it meant. So his ideal society, so this is, how is this for a Democrat, is Rome, and even better or worse, Sparta. We do not think of Sparta. Any sensible person doesn't think of Sparta as being a democracy. It was a gerontocracy, okay? And that's Greek, so I'll kind of translate it into Latin sort of stuff. Rule of the senescent? Rule of the senate? No. It would be ruled by something like senators. See how that root, S-E-N? Senescent, Sena, it means elders. Rule of the elders. So Sparta did not have a democracy. Wake up and smell the coffee. It actually had two, count them two, and you know, he understands that these folks weren't really rulers and like emperors or stuff like that, but they had two, count them two, kings at the same time. I don't know, I've never heard of that in any other polity or anything like that. They had two kings, and you know, he talks about them as though they were just magistrates, so they had certain functions. The Athenians actually had, I believe it was 9 or 10, depending on the time, archons. We'd say archons or archons. They were rulers, and one of them was actually a king. He was a magistrate. He had more like, he was a constitutional monarch, even when they had a democracy. Originally, he was the king, and what they did was they had a king, and then all of a sudden they said, okay, you're going to have to rule along with other magistrates, and we're going to call you all archons. Archon was basically being a ruler or something like that. Hierarchy. Archy kind of means it's cognate with the English word rich, the Sanskrit word Raja, the Hindu word Raj. The basic meaning means king. But in the case of Greek there, it means more like rule. Hierarchy means rule of the holy ones or something like that, right? Priests. So he was more like a priest, actually. I think he had ritual, ceremonial functions. So a little bit like the Queen of England, or now Chuckles the worst. I was going to say the first, but he's the third, Charles the Third. Anyway, you know, they do these ritual functions, and they are actually the head of the English Catholic Church. It's not really Catholic anymore, but it's derived from Catholicism. It's more Catholic than other Protestant religions. And so they're the head of the Anglican Church, is what we call it, which just means English. So, the Spartans basically had rule of the old folks, and they'd be nobility, and people who were born into it. It wouldn't be just, oh, you're old now, buddy. Now, whether you
Now
like
you
it or
get to
not,
rule.
you're going to be
Even though
ruling
you've
us.
been pounding nails into horses' shoes. And
Yeah, and of course it didn't include women. In Athens, their ruling class didn't include women, but Athens actually had something, though. They had slavery. They had something like a democracy for the people who weren't slaves, at least for the upper class. And I think it was fairly well spread out. It was the way to have. You didn't have an election so much. They just ruled by lot. Like, here you go, Mojo. We know you're a drooling fool, but it's your turn to rule over this, that, and the other thing. Not the best system. And you know, I've one left-winger I've run across. There's a lot of them that actually like Sparta. Left-wingers like Sparta because it's supposed to be a matriarchy. You know, like it's you've seen, what is that, 300? The 300 at Thermopylae.
I don't even remember it. I just remember there was a lot of fighting, but I don't remember any story.
So they were I don't want to see the most, but I suspect they were the most warlike of all the Greek city-states. They were stunning. They had absolutely no artistic achievements, no achievements in politics aside from stomping from others. So, but apparently it was something like the boys were raised by their moms. The guys, I guess, just wouldn't hang around in a family once they fathered someone. It's weird, the difference in English between mothering and fathering. You know, like you can father someone, it just, you know, like Mick Jagger.
In name only, yeah. Exactly. Well, pretty much. Genes and name.
Yeah. How are we doing for time?
Oh, you only have a minute.
Okay, so I'll finish this up.
Well, anyway, 2 minutes.
So it's the Spartans. They were awful. So one left-winger was saying, "Oh, they didn't have slavery like the Athenians." What? You know, they were Dorians. They came from the north. I gather they were Greek, but they were barbarians, basic Greek barbarians from the north. And they came down south, and they took the people that were native to the Spartan area, Lacedaemonia, I think is what it was called, and they turned them into what are called helots. We see that word is crept into the English language, or we adopted in the English language. It's slavery. What they did was they just enslaved the inhabitants, and they took care of the countryside for them. They weren't even farmers, these stupid Spartans. They got the local yokels that they'd conquered to be their farmer slaves for them. So this idiot left-winger is going around saying they didn't have slaves, just showing the usual fake left-winger ignorance. If you're going to be a left-winger, in my books, you gotta read stuff and you gotta apply it. Enough said, as Stan Lee used to say.